Hey guys, thanks for watching. I tell you what, I just got back home from a really good artifact hunt, and I was due for one. I hadn't been finding a whole lot here lately. So this is a site that I've been to before. I'm going to throw a couple thumbnails up just in case you want to catch yourself up on this site and what I found there previously. And I'll throw some links also in the description. But if you remember, I have found some intact fire pits, and guys, we got on another one, and they never get old for me. I love digging and uncovering fire pits intact. Also, some really cool artifacts came out of the area, and I'm not alone on this hunt. I've got Red with me, and Mrs. Red, and Red Jr. So, Mrs. Red, man, she hit it out of the park with an artifact that I absolutely love. Brand new material. Also going to talk, before we get started hunting, about why you can find so many artifacts in one tiny little area, no bigger than the size of a house. Check it out. Alright, so here's some of the artifacts that Red has that have all come off this one site, about the size of a good sized house foundation. That's a lot of artifacts. And all these too. So why are all of these, especially these smaller points, that seems to be predominantly what's found in this one site? A lot of the smaller quartz points, a lot of Moro Mountain, a lot of the just rounded base, little blades. Well, why are we finding those? Were they really sloppy and just losing their artifacts? Because most all of these are intact. Or were they throwing them away? Well, I believe all of these points were discarded. And it has to do with the thickness of these points. These quartz points, the little ones, are always very, very thick. That's very thick. And look at this cool crystal one here. Again, very thick. That's because small points started out their life as big blades. I don't believe very many smaller points were created that way from just raw rock. I think most all of them started out life as these bigger blades. And here's some bigger blade pieces that I can look at. You see the bifacing, so that would have been a good size preform or a blade, maybe 4 or 5 inches long. Well, as they use that, the edges get dull and they need to be resharpened. That means flaking material off to create a sharp edge. As you do that, the blade gets narrower, something like this. Now, as a point gets narrower, you have to deal with the thickness of the point. If a point is too thick, then you have a hard time getting a nice sharp edge on the sides. So when it's large like that, you have to send thinning flakes, big long flakes that take something off the edge and take something off the middle. And you're able to thin a point down to a certain degree as it gets smaller. And you end up with artifacts like this. As the blade gets smaller and smaller, the battle is always with thinning it. Well, eventually you reach a wall. And I think that's the story of most of these quartz points, is that they reached a place that they're unable to take thinning flakes off. And these were set aside. These were just set down. They reached the end of their useful life. And that's why we find so many of them in one small area. Now, these larger ones, of course, it's not the same story. They still had life and usefulness and could have been reworked. And so I think it's safe to say those were truly lost, or maybe, left from one season, because these camps were seasonal camps. They didn't stay year round. So maybe you would leave some of these behind, anticipating coming back the next year, and for whatever reason, they just get lost, covered over. One thing that kind of was really cool is this chert that we find at this site. These two have reached the end of their usefulness. Look how thin those are. Chert has the ability to be thinned far better than quartz, and so they got these things and used them down to almost nothing left. We found one piece though. Now, I believe this piece was truly lost. Just a blade. The blades don't have to be long, so that would have been hafted onto a handle, And this thing had the possibility to be reworked multiple times. You see how much smaller those are. So this had a lot of life in it, and for whatever reason, it got lost. So these medium-sized artifacts, pretty safe to say, they're either broken like that, and for whatever reason, not worked down any further, or they were truly lost. Most of these, I believe, they were just done. They had no more life left to them, and that's why that's the majority of what we find. Okay, so let's get out there and see what we can find today. All right, so Red's got an artifact he spotted. And there we go. Another one of those small, thick ones. And that one's in good shape. Did you find something?
It looks like it has like a little break.
That is cool. That's the right material, ain't it?
Yeah.
Just like that one. Look what your daddy found.
Whoa, Dad.
He found a good one, didn't he?
Yeah.
All right, we'll get back to you if we see anything else. All right, we got another one in situ in a clump here. And that one has maybe a little bit of like a turkey tail base. I can't tell. I'm gonna get Mrs. Red to extract for me here. What do we think? Is it just a blade base or? No, it's got a little bit of shoulders on it, but it's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, so there's two. We'll wash these up and take a final clean look at them. Find anything yet?
Except I only found a piece of chert.
A piece of chert. Well, that counts. All right, Mrs. Red just scored with probably the prettiest point she's ever found. Let's see that thing.
Get it wiped off here a little bit.
Oh my
So you can
goodness.
see.
Look at that.
It's beautiful.
Nice light gray chert with a almost clear tip. Let's do that. Oh my gosh. Look how translucent that is. In fact, I'm not sure that's a material that I've seen. Got to wash this one off a little bit and take a closer look. All right, guys, that is a material that I have never seen before. It's agate, and it is really, really pretty. Let's see if we can get a little bit of the sunlight coming through it. There you go. Look at that. Gosh, it's a pretty point. All right, back at it. That's a cool, cool find.
Let me show you.
All right, what'd you find? Oh, wow. Look at the back of that blade. Nice. And that's coming out at what, 15, 16 inches deep?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that agate one just came out too. Very nice. Little nick, but it's all right. It was broke to begin with. All right, got a little bit of a fire pit going on here. This one's not super well defined, but it is pretty dang deep. You can see that's 2 foot. And so we've got stone there, there, and going on around. And down in the center, just the overall, not a ton of super easy to spot charcoal, but well, you can see, maybe you can see the color of the dirt darkens when it gets down here. I don't know if you can, that kind of shows it. And so that's usually the opposite. When you start getting down this deep, normally, David, you got any of that? I need some of that color change dirt. There we go, right there. So the clay layer is normally shallower than what this fire pit is. So I'm going to keep working on a little bit. I don't know how well defined one it's going to be, but we'll see what comes out. Thought what I had was a little piece of charcoal, and it turned out to be actually a nice little chunk of chert. And this pit, fire pit, starting to look lined, but why is that in the fire pit? Don't know. Maybe they were heat treating something, or maybe it just got dropped in there over the years somehow. But no matter why it's in there, it's a good indication, because that came out right at the bottom, pretty close to the bottom of this lined fire pit. So that's a material we know they were using, so not just a pile of rocks. All right, so I'm sitting here working on this fire pit. You can see the rocks stacked in there all around, but I sat up to mop my sweaty head and look beside my knee. And there's a pretty point. Actually a blade. But it didn't come out of the fire pit. So, not totally related, but it's a nice intact blade anyway. All right, so this is about as exposed as what I'm going to get it down in this hole. But hopefully it's enough to show you. Let's see, where's my shovel? It's a lined fire pit. And so all the way around, of course, going down, they would have buried whatever food they were cooking wrapped in leaves, or, you know, mostly leaves. So you bundle that up, but you build a fire there first and allow it to heat the rocks, and then remove the coal, put your bundle of food in there, and then cover it up. But you can see it's completely lined. Really, really cool to think that that's been sitting there, and those rocks are, for the most part, placed where they were placed all those years ago. One of several fire pits that have come off this site. They don't ever get old. They get me excited.